Have you ever stopped to think who the person that made your shirt is, where he comes from, what his life is like, and what his working conditions are? If you haven't, then maybe it's time you do. The fashion industry employs 1/6 of its world's population and has very little regulations. Therefore, the fashion industry is the second most polluting industry on earth. Big Western brands outsource their productions to third world countries. They have less expenses by using cheaper materials and cheaper labour, whilst infringing workers' rights. Fashion brands now have historically low prices, leading to a rapid increase of consumption, which is also known as fast fashion. Clothing stores have countless seasons each year, leading to mass consumerism, creating a multi-trillion-dollar annual industry. This means the more resources used, an unprecedented amount of waste is generated. We are now a society that is obsessed with consuming. Did you know that 70% of the world's water is used for crop irrigation? Growing enough cotton for one t-shirt requires 1,168 litres of water. In order to make a garment, there are 6 processes that are required. These processes have numerous negative environmental impacts, from the vast amount of water being used for the irrigation of crops, to the spinning, weaving and industrial manufacture that undermine the air quality, to the chemicals being used in the dyeing of printing of textiles, affecting the atmosphere and harming the environment and humanity's health. And lastly, the large amount of energy required for production of clothes. All these factors have a negative impact on the environment at large. We need to take an environment into account and start making a change for the well-being of our planet.
We take the meaning of ethical to be anything that's environmentally or socially beneficial.
I think sustainable fashion to me means good design being relevant to the time that we live in now.
Whether it's something that you want to use an organic fibre within your production, or you're interested in making sure that all of the production is done with a certification. I think as long as somebody is actively making changes, that's a step in the right direction.
The amount which we consume is a huge concern, and as a result the production is unsustainable going forward. One of my biggest concerns is shifting our values so that the entire system can shift along with it.
I think a lot of people have said that ethics in fashion is a trend, but if anything, we can see that making parallels, for example, with organic food, that was originally thought to be a trend as well, which it hasn't been. It's exploded and it's getting bigger every year.
I think it can't be. I think that the days of it being a trend are long over. I think everyone is well aware that these issues that can't go away. They are they're right in front of our face now. There is no putting them off.
I think they all tend to be very fashion forward, which is great and on trend, but I think there could be some more developments made to the price points and making it more accessible to everyday shoppers.
It's great to have that sort of public awareness around the fact that we need to treat our environment better through the way that we treat and wear our clothes, but at the same time you've got to be careful of the greenwashing that comes along with that.
We have a term in the fashion industry, and it's called greenwashing, which is when a brand showcases an item as being ethical in some way, for example using the word natural, and that doesn't always mean anything environmentally or socially beneficial. I think that consumers have to be really careful and make sure that they understand what it is that makes a particular piece of clothing ethical. We're seeing more and more customers asking us very difficult questions about where our fabrics come from, what are they made of, how do we know that they're made of that, what are our certifications.
And yes, we want to be aware of the kind of the campaigns that are just kind of ticking a box to make sure that they're going through their corporate responsibility, but it's I think up to the consumer and up to all of us to demand a bit more than that.
It mainly comes down to price. So we are living in a society where we want a lot of different types of clothing and we want them very quickly, which means we have to produce more, which means that you have to cut corners somewhere. So that's one of the main drivers. I mean, another thing is that in order to implement some of these certifications, for example, there is a huge amount of work involved in it. So it's also there's also an element of time, having to adapt and change some of these, some of the ways that we're working currently. It also does take a huge amount of research into making sure that all of your production, especially if you're a very big company, is done ethically.
When it comes to sustainability, it's tricky. It's not just about the environment. It's a three-pillar sort of thing. You've got to consider our economy, our society and our environment, and the idea of sustainability is making sure that all three of those prosper in the future.
For example, is that we work with a lot of cooperatives, and when we source our fabrics from them, they actually rely on that income to generate work for their entire community. It's actually directly helping somebody who relies on traditional methods of weaving, and you can really alleviate poverty within certain regions.
The eco-fashion industry is still in its infancy, with the main responsibility laying with the manufacturers and designers who need to produce in a more sustainable way. Consumers need to help this niche market grow and show big brands that we want ethical fashion for our clothes to be guilt-free.